My name's Ryan. I'm 28, and about 7 months ago, I walked out of my childhood home with nothing but a duffel bag, my laptop, and a mental list of every time I'd been taken for granted. No dramatic exit, no shouting, just a quiet okay, followed by the front door clicking shut behind me. They didn't chase me. That's the part that stuck with me. Now I'm sitting in my own place, small, cozy, and finally quiet, watching my phone light up like it's possessed. Message after message, missed calls, all from the same 3 people I thought I was finally free from. I guess I should explain. Growing up, I was the solid one, the stable kid. Always on time, always respectful, always working. My older sister Madison was the golden child. Wild, impulsive, chaotic, and somehow never blamed for anything. She dropped out of college twice, jumped from job to job, and eventually moved back home at 31 to find herself. Spoiler, she's still looking. Meanwhile, the first started working at 16, got through college on scholarships and part-time jobs, and landed a solid position in tech before I even graduated. Never asked my parents for help. Never expected anything really. But Madison? She was always just between things. And when things got hard financially for my parents, guess who they leaned on? If you guessed me, congrats. You win a cookie. It started small. A few utility bills here, grocery runs there. I thought I was helping. I had the money. They were my family. But it wasn't long before just a little help became, you're basically funding our lives now. They never asked outright. They didn't have to. The guilt did the talking. Mom would sigh dramatically, glancing at the stack of unpaid bills like I wasn't supposed to notice. Dad would toss in casual jabs like, your sister's trying, Rye, but these days are tough on everyone. Every visit felt like an emotional ambush. Then came the mortgage. Just temporary, of course. That temporary lasted over 2 years. At first, I justified it. They needed help. I was able to give it. But every time I walked into that house and saw Madison glued to the couch, scrolling through TikTok while I busted my ass at work, the resentment crept in just a little deeper. The final straw? It was a Saturday. I was drained from back-to-back deadlines and thought I'd swing by with some groceries because, of course, they hadn't gone shopping. Again, I walked in, arms full of bags, only to be greeted by a family intervention. Mom stood in the hallway like a bouncer, arms crossed, jaw set. Dad paced in the kitchen, already shaking his head like I'd disappointed them without even saying a word. Madison didn't look up from her phone. We need to talk, Ryan, Mom said, and I swear my soul rolled its eyes before I did. I set the bags down. Sure. What now? Dad stepped forward like he was about to drop some wise fatherly truth. We've talked, and, well, we think you need to contribute more. I stared. More? You make good money, Mom chimed in, and it's not fair that we're struggling while you're off living comfortably. I blinked. You mean besides the mortgage? And the groceries? And everything else I've been paying for? Madison shrugged without looking up. It's not a big deal. It's just money. That was it. That was the moment. I looked at her, at them, at the house I had basically been keeping afloat. And I realized they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a wallet with a pulse. Let me get this straight, I said slowly, my voice flat. You want me to pay even more, while Madison does nothing? She's going through a lot, Mom snapped. And don't talk about your sister like that. Dad stepped in, tone sharper. We just need you to step up. If you were a good son, you'd take responsibility. There it was. The guilt grenade. But something snapped in me. I wasn't angry. I was done. Right, I said. So you want me to keep paying for everything while she lounges around and you two pretend this is normal? Ryan, Mom started, but I cut her off with a smile. No problem, I said. I'll make it easier for everyone. I picked up my bag, walked to the door, and just before stepping out, I turned back and added, good luck. Then I left. No yelling, no slamming doors, just peace. For the first time in years, I slept through the night, without anxiety clawing at my chest. The silence was golden until today. 7 months of nothing. Then this morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Dad. Why haven't you paid the mortgage this month? That's all it said. No hello, no hope you're doing well. Just the same old assumption that I'd continue to be their backup plan. So I replied, oh, I thought I wasn't welcome anymore. What followed was a flood of messages that would make a telemarketer blush. Calls, texts, voicemails. From Dad, from Mom, even from Madison. I didn't even touch the phone at first. Just sat back, arms folded, watching it light up like a Christmas tree. I already knew what the messages said. I could hear their voices in my head like a bad sitcom rerun. Mom, how could you do this to us? Dad, we're behind, Ryan. The bank called. Madison, seriously, dude. You're just gonna let us lose the house? Oh, the drama. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up the phone and skimmed through the chaos. Mom accused me of being cruel. Dad tried the whole reasonable parent tone. Madison, of course, played the victim. Again, you're ruining everything, she texted. I smirked. No, Madison. I was just finally not fixing it. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted them to sweat, to finally sit in the consequences they never thought would touch them. And when I finally did respond, I didn't scream. I didn't rage. I typed 3 words, not my problem, and hit send. After I sent that message, not my problem, you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Nope. That was just me lighting the fuse. Because apparently, when you remove yourself from a broken system, the people who relied on you to keep it running, they panic hard. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes after that, Mom. Straight to voicemail. Then came Madison, because of course she had to weigh in. You're being selfish, her message said. We're your family. I just laughed. Out loud. Alone in my apartment, actually laughing. Family? Funny how they remembered. We were family only when the bills showed up, with no one else left to pay them. For the next hour, my phone buzzed non-stop. I muted it, tossed it face down on the table, and just sat back. It was peaceful, quiet, almost therapeutic watching them implode from a distance. For once, I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. Eventually, the first picked up the phone again, curiosity mostly, and maybe a bit of spite. Mom's text had taken a sharp turn. The bank called again. They're talking foreclosure. Do you really want that on your conscience? We raised you, Ryan. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us? Ah, the classics. I could practically hear her voice. That mix of righteous anger and wounded victimhood. She had it down to a science. Then there was Dad, trying the let's be reasonable route. It's just a rough patch. Just until we get back on our feet. As if I hadn't heard that exact sentence for the last 3 years. Then came the voicemail. From Madison. And it was something else. Her voice was serious, forced serious. Like someone trying to sound tough but couldn't quite sell it. I hope you're happy. Mom's crying, Dad's freaking out. We're about to lose everything. If you don't do something, this is on you. I replayed it. Twice. This is on you. That was when it hit me. None of them had learned a single thing. They still thought I was responsible for their disaster. Like I'd owed them all this time. Like me stepping away from their chaos wasn't setting a boundary, it was betrayal. So I made a choice. Not out of anger, not even out of spite, but because I was done being the one holding up a house that wasn't mine anymore. I called the bank. The rep on the other end sounded surprised to hear from me, especially when I explained I wasn't technically on the account anymore, but I'd been making payments for years. She asked a few questions, put me on hold, and when she came back, her voice had that careful tone like she was about to tell me something unpleasant. According to our records, full mortgage payments haven't been received in nearly 8 months. Several months were partial payments or missed entirely. 8 months. I blinked, stunned for a second. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was infuriating. Even while I was still sending them money, they hadn't been using it to pay the damn mortgage. So what were they doing with it? It was like a puzzle I didn't even know I was supposed to be solving. And now that I'd started flipping over the pieces, the full picture was starting to show. Thousands of dollars gone. And not a single receipt to prove it went where they said it did. Now I was angry. Not the kind of angry where you yell or break stuff. The colder kind. The clear-headed kind. The kind that makes you look at everything differently. I scrolled through my banking app and started going back. Payment after payment. Transfers marked help, or groceries, or mortgage. I did some quick math. In just the last year alone, I'd sent them enough money to cover 10 months of payments. So how had they still managed to fall that far behind? Unless they never stopped treating me like an endless resource. Like the moment I said I'm done, their world would crumble and somehow it would still be my fault. And the worst part, they had no backup plan, no budget, no savings, nothing, just me. Until I walked out, I decided it was time to call Madison. I needed to hear it from her directly. She picked up after one ring. Ryan, finally. Are you seriously going to just let the house get taken? Hey, Maddie, I said, tone calm. Quick question. What exactly have you all been doing with the money I sent? Silence. I let it hang for a beat. The bank says you haven't paid the full mortgage in 8 months. But I was still sending you money during that time. So where did it go? She stammered. Literally stammered. I don't know what you mean. Mom handles that, right? And she just forgot to pay it? For 8 months? Another pause. Then she snapped. Why are you even asking this? It doesn't matter. What matters is we're about to lose the house. No, I said quietly. What matters is you've been lying. All of you. She went silent again. And for the first time in a long time, I heard it the sound of someone realizing they weren't in control anymore. Ryan, she finally said, voice low, you don't get it. Mom and Dad are scared. They don't know what to do. Neither did I said. When I was 22 and broke and juggling 2 jobs just to keep my apartment. But I figured it out. I learned. I adapted. You all just stayed exactly the same and expected me to keep covering the difference. I thought you cared, she said, her voice bitter now. I do, I replied. I care enough to let you figure it out yourselves for once. And I hung up. I didn't block them. Not yet. But I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and went to make dinner. Something simple, something warm, something I didn't have to share. As I stirred the pot, I thought about the years I'd spent believing I was being a good son, a good brother, that if I just gave a little more, things would eventually get better. But they never did, because I was the only one trying. That night, I slept better than I had in months. And when I woke up the next morning, the silence continued, until my phone lit up again with a new message. From my dad. You don't understand. If we lose the house, you lose too. You won't have anywhere to come back to. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I smiled. Because finally, he'd said the quiet part out loud. If we lose the house, you lose too. You won't have anywhere to come back to. That text sat on my screen for a while, like it was trying to stare me down. And I just smiled. Because that sentence right there, that was everything I'd always known but never had confirmed. They hadn't kept that house for themselves. Not really. Somewhere along the line, it had become my burden too. My guilt. My fallback. Their safety net. Only now, I'd cut the rope. I typed out a response, slow and deliberate. I seemed to be doing just fine without it. I hit send, then tossed my phone on the table and went back to my coffee. It didn't take long. A new call came in. Mom, this time. Of course, I let it ring. Then another, and another. By the time I picked up, I was already bracing myself. She didn't even say hello. You're really gonna let this happen? She snapped. You're gonna let your family get thrown out on the street? Is that what you want? I kept my voice even. No, what I want is for you to take responsibility for once. Oh, don't be dramatic, she snapped. This house means everything to us. Funny, I said, because when I walked out, you told me never to come back. That sounds pretty final to me. That was different, she said quickly. We were upset. Families say things. Sure, I said, but you meant it. You made it clear I wasn't part of that house anymore. Not unless I came with a checkbook. She didn't respond, just breathing tight, angry, and cornered. You've been lying, Mom, I said calmly. The bank told me the payment stopped long before I left. So where did the money go? A sharp inhale. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. You and Dad were pocketing it. Madison didn't notice, or maybe she didn't care, but I sure do. I sent you money every month. Enough to cover the bills. Enough to keep the house afloat. And somehow it still sank. Why? She started saying something, some excuse, some spin, but I wasn't listening anymore. Because something inside me had settled. I wasn't just done with helping them. I was done with pretending they hadn't used me. All those years of sacrifices. All the times I said I'm fine when I wasn't. skipping trips, skipping meals, skipping life just to make sure they were okay. And they didn't even bother to keep the lights on with it. "Ryan," she said, her voice softer now, like she was trying a different angle. "You don't understand." It wasn't easy. Things just got complicated. "Then you should have said something," I replied, "instead of hiding it and hoping I wouldn't notice. We thought we could fix it before you found out." "Right. And when that didn't work, you just hoped I'd start paying again and ask no questions." Her silence told me everything I needed to know. "You all lied to me," I said. "For months, maybe longer." "We didn't lie," she protested weakly. "We just didn't say anything." "That's not better." I hung up. No yelling, no drama, just done. Again. By that afternoon, I had gone full spreadsheet mode. Old bank transfers, Venmo logs, even old text messages. I wanted the timeline clear, not because I needed it legally, but because I needed to see it, to understand. Turns out, the last full mortgage payment had been over 10 months ago. 10. That meant, even when I was still contributing, they weren't using it for what they claimed. The numbers told the story. Steady deposits from me. But the mortgage account? Starving. That night, I scrolled through Madison's Instagram, curiosity more than anything, and there it was. A Cancun trip, a spa day, a fancy birthday dinner with champagne and everything while I'd been eating leftovers from a plastic container at my desk at work. I laughed. Not the funny kind. The wow, I was really that naive kind. That laugh turned into something colder. This wasn't just irresponsibility. This was betrayal. They'd taken the help I gave them and treated it like free spending money. Like I was the fool who would always cover the tab no matter how high it got. And maybe I had been. Until now. 2 days passed. Radio silence. I think they figured out the guilt trip had lost its power. That I wasn't going to rush in with a cape and a checkbook. Then came the knock. A soft one. Like whoever was on the other side was hoping I wouldn't answer. I opened the door to find Madison standing there. She looked different. Not put together like her social media suggested. She looked tired. "Hey," she said, avoiding my eyes. I didn't step aside. "What do you want? I thought maybe we could talk. In person." I crossed my arms. "You've got 2 minutes." She bit her lip, shifting awkwardly. "I didn't know. About the money. About the mortgage. I mean, I knew we were tight, but I didn't know it was that bad." "You lived there," I said. "You saw the bills." "Mom always handled it," she said quietly. "I thought you were still sending the money." I raised an eyebrow. "And when things started collapsing, you still didn't ask questions?" She looked down. "I didn't want to know." "That's convenient." "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have said something. I should have helped." I looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time, she actually looked like she meant it. But sorry doesn't undo years of silence. "You want to fix it?" I asked. She looked up. "Yes." "Then start helping them. Get a job. Pick up the bills. Make the calls. Do everything I did while you were taking vacations." Her face fell, not in a defensive way, just reality hitting her for the first time. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "Then I guess you finally understand how I felt." I closed the door, not slamming it, just closing it. Later that night, Dad called. I let it ring. Then I picked up on the last second. "Ryan," he said, voice low, "we're out of options." I didn't say anything. "We're getting the final notice. The foreclosure letter came today. It's over if we don't pay by the end of the month." Still, I didn't speak. "I know we screwed up," he continued. "We let you carry it too long. I see that now." "No," I said. "You saw it then. You just didn't care." Silence. "We were scared. So was I." He let out a shaky breath. "I'm not asking you to pay it all. Just help us figure something out." I paused. Then said, "Sell the house." "What?" "Sell the house." He went quiet, like I'd just suggested burning it down. "We can't," he said. "It's your childhood home." "No," I replied. "It was. Now it's just a sinking ship." "You won't help at all?" he asked, almost whispering. "I did help. For years. And you all wasted it." And with that, I ended the call. I sat in silence for a while, phone still in hand. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. Sometimes people don't learn until the floor finally gives out. And maybe it's cruel to watch it happen, but it's even crueler to keep holding it up while they do nothing. That house had always been a symbol for them, of family, of legacy. But for me, it was just the place I'd learned what it meant to be used. And now, I was done being the foundation for something that never supported me back. After I hung up on Dad, I just sat there. The phone screen went dark in my hand, but my thoughts kept spinning. It wasn't the kind of rage that needed to be yelled into a pillow or punched out on a wall. It was quieter. A sort of dull ache that settled in your chest when you finally realized something you'd always clung to had never really been yours. That house. I used to think it meant something, that it held pieces of me, memories, moments. But memories don't pay the bills, and they sure as hell don't fix betrayal. I thought about the weekends I spent fixing their leaky sink or mowing the lawn when Madison was too tired. The holidays I spent dragging my tired self across town just so I wouldn't be called distant. The nights I'd wired money from my phone while eating ramen because just one more month turned into 20. All of it chipped away at who I was until the only part of me they cared about was my bank balance. But now the balance was zero. Not in my account, in my patience. 2 days passed. No calls, no texts. I guess silence feels different when it's not something you choose, but something forced on you. On the third morning, I got a message from Madison. The house is going on the market. I just wanted you to know. That was it. No emojis, no drama, just a plain, tired sentence. I stared at it for a long time, and despite everything, a small part of me wanted to reply, to say something. But what could I say that I hadn't already said? So I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the real estate listing she linked. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, charming family home with vintage touches, listed slightly below market value, probably hoping for a quick sale. Seeing those pictures hit me harder than I expected. The living room still had that crooked painting above the fireplace. The kitchen counter still had that tiny burn mark from when I spilled boiling water as a teenager. My old room was painted over, but I recognized the shape of the window. It felt like looking at a ghost, not one that haunted you, just one that reminded you of who you used to be. Later that night, I went for a walk. The streets were quiet, lit only by a few flickering street lamps. I passed a kid riding a scooter, his mom calling him home from the porch. For a second, I envied that simplicity. The way kids get to believe home is always safe, always solid. No strings, no invoices. But adults? We learn better. When I got back to my apartment, I had another message waiting. This time from Dad. We accepted an offer. It's not enough to clear everything, but it'll stop the foreclosure. I guess that's something. I didn't know how to feel about that. Relief? Sadness? Vindication? Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. Because this wasn't just about a house anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. This was about being seen, about not being used, about finally saying enough. A week passed. Then came the twist I didn't expect. A letter, real paper, handwritten, from my mom. It was short. No guilt, no pleas, just an apology. Ryan, I don't know what to say that would make any of this okay. We were wrong. I was wrong. You were never supposed to carry everything, but we let you. And when you stopped, we blamed you for letting it fall. That wasn't fair. I can't change what happened. But I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times. Then I set it down and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something close. Maybe recognition. I didn't reply. Not right away. I let the dust settle, let the guilt die where it belonged, in their hands. In the meantime, I kept doing what I'd always done, working, living, existing on my own terms. I started eating better, sleeping better. I even started reading again, something I hadn't done since college. Life felt quieter, but not empty, just mine. Then, out of nowhere, I ran into Madison at a cafe downtown. I was grabbing coffee after a late meeting, and there she was at a corner table, earbuds in, laptop open, sipping an overpriced drink like she suddenly understood what it meant to hustle. She didn't see me at first. I debated walking away, but something told me not to. So I stepped up to her table and cleared my throat. Her eyes flicked up, and for a second, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Ryan, she said, blinking. Hey. Hey, I replied. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. She gestured at the chair. Want to sit? I did. Just for a minute. So, I said, nodding at her laptop. You working? She smiled, a little sheepishly. Trying. Got a part-time admin gig. Pays garbage, but it's something. That's new. Yeah, she said. It's weird, actually earning stuff instead of just waiting for it. I nodded slowly. It's a good kind of weird. There was a pause. Then she looked me in the eye. Thanks for walking away, Ryan, she said. That caught me off guard. Most people would have called me a jerk. You were, she admitted, grinning. But I needed that. We all did. I didn't say anything. Just sipped my coffee and let her words sit. I miss the house, she added after a beat. But I don't miss what we became in it. I nodded. Neither do I. When I left the cafe, the sky was starting to turn gold with sunset. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was carrying a 100-pound weight on my chest. Not because everything was fixed, but because it didn't need to be. Not all at once. Sometimes healing isn't a single moment. It's a slow unfolding, like breathing after holding it for too long. That night, I texted Mom. Just one line. Got your letter. Thank you. She didn't reply. And that was okay, because I wasn't looking for anything anymore. I had already found it. After I sent that simple text, got your letter. Thank you. I didn't expect much. No explosion. No heartfelt back and forth. Just a moment. A thread between two people stretched thin from years of unspoken expectations. And that was all I needed. Funny how something so small can carry the weight of everything. I didn't hear back. Not for days. Not for a week. And yet it didn't sit on my chest like it used to. I wasn't waiting for validation anymore. Because something had changed, and not just in them, in me. That weekend, I stopped by the neighborhood. I didn't go to the house. It wasn't ours anymore. It belonged to someone else now. Some other family with fresh paint and no baggage. I drove past it slowly, windows up, music low. The curtains were drawn in my old room. The porch had new lights. It didn't feel like a loss, more like closure. I drove further down the block, parked, and took a walk through the park I used to ride my bike in as a kid. The same trees, the same cracked sidewalk, even the same swing set, though the chains looked rustier now. I sat on the bench where my dad used to bring us on Sunday mornings. He'd hand us chocolate milk and tell us stories about how he grew up, stories I now realized were more fiction than truth. Still, I remembered the sound of his voice, warm, steady. Before life got complicated, before they forgot I was a son, not a savior. Later that day, my phone buzzed. I didn't check it right away. I let it sit in my pocket as I walked under the trees. The late afternoon light painted gold across the grass, and for a few minutes, I just breathed. When I finally pulled it out, it was another text. From Mom. Would you meet with us? Just once. No pressure. No money talk. Just us. I stared at it for a while. My first instinct was no. Why open the door again? What good could possibly come from another round of apologies and guilt? But then I remembered that letter, her handwriting, the way it didn't ask for anything. Maybe they were finally learning how to speak without asking for a price. So I said yes. We met at a small diner off the highway, neutral ground, a place where no one had history, just booths, bad coffee, and too much fluorescent lighting. I got there first, chose a corner booth by the window, ordered water, no appetite. 10 minutes later, they walked in. Dad looked older, not in the he's aging way, but in the way people do when they've finally been humbled. Mom looked nervous, like she wasn't sure what version of me would be sitting at the table. I didn't stand up. I just nodded as they slid in across from me. No one spoke at first. It wasn't awkward. It was honest. We didn't need to fill the silence with fluff. Then Dad spoke. You look good, Ryan. Thanks, I said. Mom smiled softly. You do. Healthier, I nodded. Another pause. Then Dad leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. We didn't come to talk about the house, he said. We know that's done. I appreciated that. He trailed off, then tried again. We wanted to own our part in what happened. Fully. I raised an eyebrow. Took a while. He winced. Yeah, I know. too long. I was angry, I said. Still am, sometimes. Not just because of the money. Because you made me feel like I didn't matter unless I was fixing things. Mom's eyes got glossy. She didn't cry, but I could tell she wanted to. We thought we were surviving, she said quietly. But we were surviving on you. And we didn't even see it. No, I said. You did. You just didn't want to admit it. It was easier to pretend I was just the responsible one, that it was my role. Neither of them argued. And that was the first time I actually believed they understood. We talked for an hour, not about the past, at least not in the way we used to. No dodging, no excuses, just truth. Honest and a little uncomfortable. They told me what happened after I left, how the house unraveled quickly, how they argued, blamed each other, how Madison broke down one day and said out loud what none of them wanted to admit: Ryan did everything. And we let him. That was when things started shifting. Dad said he picked up part-time warehouse work after they lost the house. Mom started working evenings at a community center. Not glamorous, not easy, but real. We're not asking to fix everything, Mom said, her hands wrapped around her empty mug. We just want to rebuild something, even if it's small. I leaned back in my seat. You don't get to rebuild until you understand what you tore down, I said softly. We're starting to, she said. It's slow. I nodded once, then stood up. Take care of yourselves, I said. That's all I ever wanted. As I left the diner, I didn't feel some grand cinematic closure. No swelling music, no family hug in the parking lot. Just a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. They still had work to do, a lot of it. But for the first time, they were finally doing it without me propping everything up. And that was enough. Back at home, I made myself a real dinner, nothing frozen, nothing microwaved. I put on some soft music, watered the plants on my windowsill. They were still alive, somehow. I sat at the kitchen table, alone but not lonely, and I thought about how hard it is to walk away from something that shaped you even when it broke you. But sometimes, walking away is the only way to rebuild on your own terms. The thing is, no one teaches you how to leave quietly, how to stop fixing things that were never yours to fix, how to stop being the glue that holds a cracked mirror together. But once you do, once you stop being the glue, you realize you were never the crack. You were just the one holding the pieces. A few weeks passed. The seasons started shifting. That in-between time when the air is cooler but not cold. The kind of weather that makes you breathe deeper without realizing it. I hadn't heard from my parents since the diner. No texts, no calls, and that was okay. They had finally stopped reaching out with requests. No more guilt bombs, no hidden strings attached to their words. For the first time in years, our silence didn't feel like a standoff. It felt like space. The kind that lets people grow. I kept living, working, sleeping better, eating better. Not because some miracle happened, but because I wasn't spending my days trying to hold up a house of cards with one hand and my own life with the other. There's a strange peace in not waiting for the next emotional emergency. It's like when you step out of the storm and suddenly realize how soaked you were. How long you'd been standing in the rain and calling it normal. Then one Saturday morning, I got a message from Madison. Hey, just wanted to say thanks again. For everything. I know we didn't show it back then, but we see it now. No ask, no drama, just acknowledgement. That alone was more healing than any apology she could have given months ago. I wrote back, took a while, but I'm glad you see it now. That was it. Short, honest. Enough. Sometimes closure isn't a big moment. It's just the tension finally letting go. A couple of days later, I visited a friend from work. He was moving into a new place and needed help assembling furniture, one of those unspoken tests of real friendship. While we were messing around with the world's most confusing instruction manual, he said, "Man, I don't know how you stayed so calm during all that stuff with your family." I paused, tightening a bolt. I wasn't, I said, not at first. But eventually, I had to stop bleeding for people who kept calling it loyalty. He looked up. Damn, that's deep. I shrugged. It was overdue. And it was. For years, I confused obligation with love. I thought giving more meant I mattered more. But love without respect is just quiet control. And I was done being controlled. One night not long after, I got a voicemail. From Dad. I almost deleted it before playing it. Old reflex. But I pressed play. "Hey Ryan, I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. I don't think I ever said that enough, or meant it when I did. But I do now. You did the hard thing, the right thing, even if it took losing everything for us to see it. He paused. I hope someday we earn our way back to being a family again. If not, I get it. Just wanted you to know we're trying. I sat there, phone in hand, heart quiet, because for the first time he wasn't asking for help or forgiveness. He was just speaking truth. It didn't fix everything, but it didn't need to. A few months went by. The house sold. My parents moved into a small rental apartment on the edge of town. Madison got a steady job. I saw her once or twice in passing, civil, calm, no leftover tension. We were all just moving forward in our own ways, not pretending everything was perfect, just no longer pretending it never broke. Sometimes people ask me if I regret walking away, if I wish I handled it differently, if I feel guilty about letting them crash when I could have stepped in. And the answer? No. Because what I did wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. People don't grow when you rescue them every time they fall. They grow when they finally hit the ground and realize no one's coming to save them but themselves. That moment, it's brutal. But it's also where everything starts. I still think about that house sometimes, not with longing, more like looking at an old photograph of a place you outgrew. It taught me a lot about family, about limits, about the cost of being the responsible one when no one else is even trying. But more than anything, it taught me how to walk away, not in anger, not out of revenge, but because staying would have meant losing myself completely. These days, I'm building something different. Not a house, not a legacy for someone else to drain, just a life that's mine, quiet, steady, uncomplicated. And yeah, some days it gets lonely. But that kind of loneliness is a whole lot better than feeling alone in a room full of people who say they love you but only when you're useful. Now I've got peace. And peace, as it turns out, is louder than any apology. So if you've made it this far, thanks for listening to my story. I don't need validation, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious. Did I do the right thing? Was I heartless or finally brave enough to stop bleeding for people who didn't care? I was hurting? You tell me. I'll be reading the comments, quietly, with a cup of coffee and no buzzing phone in sight. Story 2. It all started the day my parents decided my car wasn't mine anymore. I'm Alex, 19, and I've been saving up for that old Honda Civic since I was 15. For long years, flipping burgers, stocking shelves, and doing odd jobs around the neighborhood, every penny carefully stashed away until I finally had enough. That rusty little heap might not seem like much, but to me, it represented freedom. Late night drives with friends, peaceful rides with music blasting, and a life away from my family's never-ending drama. But then Jake turned 16, got his license, and suddenly, my hard-earned car wasn't mine anymore. Jake's my little brother, the family golden child, spoiled beyond belief. He's used to getting exactly what he wants when he wants it. When he hinted at wanting my car, I brushed it off. I mean, who would give away their child's car to someone else? Right. Turns out my parents would. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon when my world shifted upside down. I just finished washing my car, taking extra care on those stubborn rims, when my dad walked over with that familiar, uncomfortable expression. Alex, he began scratching his head awkwardly. Your mom and I were talking. And since you're heading to college soon, we think Jake could use your car more. I froze, soapy sponge dripping from my hand. Dad, are you kidding me? I paid for this car. I've been working since freshman year. Well, he cleared his throat, not meeting my gaze. You'll figure something out, you're resourceful. Jake needs the car more right now. Soccer practice, hanging with friends. You understand? My heart sank, replaced by a burning frustration. No, Dad, I don't understand. You can't just take something I bought. I earned this. He raised a hand dismissively, already walking back inside. End of discussion, Alex. End of discussion. Just like that. As if 4 years of sweat and sacrifice meant nothing. Jake strolled out moments later, casually snatching the keys off the hood with a smug grin. Thanks, bro, he said mockingly, waving as he hopped in the driver's seat. I stood in the driveway, fists clenched, anger bubbling inside me. But I knew shouting wouldn't change a thing. My parents had always favored Jake, and nothing I said could ever shift their warped logic. Still watching him drive away in my car, the one I'd paid for, maintained, cherished, felt like someone punched me right in the gut. Days turned into weeks, and the sight of Jake zipping around town in my car became unbearable. My parents brushed off every complaint I made, accusing me of jealousy or selfishness. My mother would roll. Horizon. Sigh. Alex, your older Acura age. Jake needs this. My frustration simmered, morphing slowly into quiet rage. I found myself losing sleep, lying awake at night, replaying every unfair moment. The hardest part was feeling utterly powerless. I tried confronting Jake directly, but he'd just smirk and walk away, leaving me stewing. Then one afternoon, everything changed. I was sulking in my room, scrolling aimlessly on my phone, when my friend Marcus called. His voice was urgent. "Alex, I just saw your car. Well, Jake's driving, but dude, he's driving like a maniac. Nearly took out a mailbox. You gotta do something." That was my breaking point. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was worried. Genuinely worried. Jake was reckless. Careless. And it terrified me what might happen if I didn't intervene. But confronting my parents again wouldn't work. They'd side with Jake, like always. I needed a different plan. I decided to check into my car's paperwork. After all, I'd bought it used from a guy off Craigslist who had been vague about its history. Maybe, just maybe, I'd find something useful. Digging through the documents, I discovered a tiny detail I'd overlooked before. My car had a salvage title. It had been repaired after a serious accident, and while safe to drive, the repairs had been extensive enough to earn it the dreaded salvage status. That's why it had been so cheap. But at the time, I barely cared. An idea struck me, equal parts brilliant and risky. I remembered my parents had recently switched insurance companies. They'd never bothered updating the details for my car, assuming everything was fine. But I knew something they didn't. Our new insurance explicitly stated they wouldn't cover salvage-titled vehicles. It was a glaring oversight, and suddenly I saw a path forward. I wrestled with the morality of my plan, torn between justified revenge and guilt. But every time I thought about Jake speeding around in my car, oblivious to the trouble he could cause, the anger returned stronger than before. So I stayed silent. I waited, counting down the days, knowing sooner or later Jake's reckless behavior would catch up to him. And just as expected, my patience eventually paid off. It was a late Wednesday night when my phone buzzed again. This time it was Jake. His voice shook with panic, breathless and desperate. "Alex, I got pulled over. They ran the plates or something. And now they're saying I can't drive the car home. They said something about it being uninsured. Dad's coming, but he's furious. Dude, did you know about this?" My heart pounded wildly in my chest, and for a moment, guilt clawed at my throat. I swallowed hard, composing myself before replying calmly. "I guess someone should have checked the paperwork." There was a pause. Then Jake whispered, his voice now full of dread. "Alex, this is serious. Dad's yelling at the officer, but he's threatening fines, maybe even impounding the car." "Well," I said, fighting back the bitterness I'd carried for weeks. "Sounds like you'll figure something out." "Right." I hung up, my heart racing, my hands trembling on one hand. Satisfaction flowed through me. Finally, some justice. But the worry lingered too. Had I gone too far? My thoughts spiraled, torn between the sweet taste of revenge and fear, of the fallout that would surely follow. Less than an hour later, my parents stormed into the house, voices raised in fury. My dad's face was red, veins throbbing in his forehead. "Alex, what did you do?" I stood my ground, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Me? I didn't do anything. You took my car, remember?" He pointed angrily at me. You knew about the insurance. Jake could have gotten in serious trouble." "And what about me, Dad?" I fired back, anger finally boiling over. "You didn't care when you stole my car. Why should I care about Jake's mess?" He stopped momentarily, stunned by my defiance. My mom stepped forward, eyes blazing. "This is unacceptable, Alex. You deliberately set your brother up." My heart hammered wildly, adrenaline surging. "I didn't set anyone up. You made your choice. You thought I'd just let it slide? Well, Now you're dealing with the consequences." The silence that followed was thick, charged with tension and unresolved anger. My parents stared at me, suddenly realizing their golden child was no longer untouchable, that actions actually had consequences. Jake hovered behind them, silent and wide-eyed for the first time, unsure how to manipulate this situation to his advantage. Just as my father opened his mouth to respond, his phone rang sharply, breaking the tense silence. He glanced down, his expression shifting instantly to worry, and stepped away to take the call. We stood frozen, waiting minutes past each second, feeling like an eternity when he finally returned. His face was pale, eyes wide in disbelief. "Alex," he said slowly, his voice trembling. "What exactly did you do?" I stared back, confused and suddenly anxious. Something was clearly very wrong. The tension in the room multiplied tenfold, leaving us all on edge, waiting for him to speak. Then, with an expression I'd never seen before, fear mixed with disbelief, he revealed something shocking, something that flipped the entire situation upside down. My dad took a shaky breath, I starting between me and my mom, the color draining from his face. "That was Officer Bennett," he finally said, voice trembling slightly. "They ran the VIN number on the car. Apparently it's flagged as stolen." The words hit me like ice water, freezing me in place. "Wait, stolen? That's impossible. I bought it off Craigslist. I have all the paperwork." My voice cracked with panic as my mind raced through every interaction I'd had when buying the car. The seller had seemed legit. Just another guy wanting to get rid of an old car, right? Jake stepped forward, suddenly not so smug anymore, his bravado entirely replaced by wide-eyed fear. "Wait, you mean I've been driving a stolen car?" My dad rubbed his temples, the tension overwhelming him. "Yes, Jake. That's exactly what it means. The police said they're sending someone here tomorrow morning to get our statements and look at the documents. Alex, you better have everything in order." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of this revelation pressing down on me. Revenge. It tasted sweet for a brief moment, but now I was sinking into a deeper mess than I'd ever imagined. Suddenly, it wasn't just about my selfish brother or entitled parents. This could genuinely ruin my future, Dad. I swear, I had no idea. The guy who sold it to me said everything was fine. The salvage title made sense. It was just a rebuilt car. My mother scoffed bitterly, pacing across the room. "You see, Alex, your little stunt trying to get revenge on Jake just blew up in your face. You didn't just put your brother at risk. You've put this whole family in jeopardy." Her words stung, slicing deep. My stunt mom. "I worked 2 years to buy that car. You just took it from me like it meant nothing. If you hadn't, none of this would have happened." "Stop!" my dad yelled, voice sharp enough to halt as both made argument. "Pointing fingers won't solve anything. We need to get this sorted out before it escalates. Alex, get the paperwork you have, Jake. You're done driving, period. And nobody." He glared at each of us. "Nobody breathes a word about this outside the house. We fix this quietly. Understand?" The house was silent, tense, suffocating. Everyone nodded slowly, acknowledging the gravity of the situation. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Secrets had a way of leaking out, especially in our small, gossip-ridden town. That night, sleep refused to come. I stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every interaction I'd had with the Craigslist seller. Frank, I recalled. It seemed so normal. Just another ordinary guy who wanted quick cash for an old car. I'd asked about the salvage title, and he'd casually explained it away as just repairs from a minor accident. Had I missed something? Ignored a red flag in my eagerness to own my first car? Or worse, had Frank known exactly what he was doing, and I was the perfect clueless target? Morning arrived too soon. Sunlight creeping into my room, carrying a sense of dread downstairs. The atmosphere was still thick, a painful mix of anger and anxiety. Jake sat silently at the breakfast table, staring blankly at his bowl of cereal. My parents hovered around nervously, occasionally shooting me tense glances as we waited for the inevitable knock at the door. Finally, at exactly 8:30, the knock came firm, authoritative, echoing ominously throughout the house. My father hesitated before opening the door, greeting Officer Bennett with strained politeness. The officer stepped inside his eyes, immediately scanning the room, assessing each of us carefully. "Good morning." He began professionally, but his tone carried an underlying severity. "We've got quite a mess here. Let's sit down and go through everything carefully." I handed him my carefully organized stack of documents, trying desperately to hide my trembling hands. "Officer, I promise you, I didn't know anything about this being stolen. I bought it legally, or at least I thought I did." He flipped through the papers silently, eyes narrowed in concentration after a few tense minutes. He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. "Alex, do you still have contact information for the seller?" I nodded eagerly. "Yes, absolutely. His name is Frank. I have his number and email saved." Officer Bennett jotted something down quickly. "Good. We'll follow up on that immediately. But I need to tell you, Alex, you're in a precarious situation here. The car was stolen in another state over a year ago. Whoever Frank is, he knew exactly what he was selling you." My heart plummeted further, realizing the depth of the hole I'd stumbled into. Beside me, Jake squirmed uncomfortably, his arrogance entirely absent now. My parents remained silent, faces grim as the reality of the situation sank in. Officer Bennett stood up after a long pause, sighing heavily. "Unfortunately, the car will have to be impounded as evidence. And, Alex, depending on what we find with the seller, we might need to speak with you again. Make sure you're available." As he walked to the door, he paused, turning back with a softened tone. "Look off the record. I see this kind of thing often. Kids trying to buy their first cars cheap online. It's easy to be fooled, but you've got yourself caught up in a serious legal issue. Be careful going forward with that." He was gone, leaving behind stunned silence. My dad finally broke it, sinking down into the couch with a defeated sigh. "Well, Alex, I hope your little act of rebellion was worth it." The bitterness in his voice rekindled my anger. "This isn't about rebellion, Dad. I bought that car myself. I did everything right. You're the ones who gave it away without even asking." My mom intervened sharply. "Enough, both of you. We need to deal with reality, Alex. Until this gets cleared up, you're grounded, Jake. You're also grounded for your reckless driving. Nobody leaves this house except for school and work," Jake protested weakly. "But Mom, that's not fair." She spun on him, furious. "Fair. Do you want to talk about fair right now?" The house plunged back into tense silence. Heavier than ever, I felt utterly trapped, suffocated by the consequences of something I'd never intended. My small act of revenge had spiraled wildly out of control, pulling everyone down with it. Yet beneath the guilt and fear simmered a growing determination to clear my name, find Frank, and confront the man responsible for this nightmare. Days passed painfully slow, filled with cold silence and unbearable tension. My parents barely spoke to me, and Jake avoided eye contact. My life felt frozen, trapped between my anger toward my family and desperation to clear this mess. Then one evening, my phone buzzed with a notification. An unknown number. I opened it nervously, expecting another disaster, but instead found a short, chilling message that stopped my heart cold. "You shouldn't have told the police about me, Alex. That was a big mistake." My stomach churned violently, dread sinking in. Frank had found me first. This was no longer just about family drama or a stolen car. This was becoming dangerously personal. My pulse raced as I stared at the message from Frank. Every word felt like a threat crawling under my skin, making my heart pound louder in my chest. How had he even gotten my new number? I changed it recently. Panic churned inside me as I reread his message over and over, desperately searching for any hidden meaning or clue. "You shouldn't have told the police about me, Alex. That was a big mistake." Who was Frank? Really a criminal? Just some scammer or something worse? I felt exposed, vulnerable, like my safe little world had been ripped open. The idea of a dangerous stranger knowing who I was, where I lived, filled me with dread. My first instinct was to tell my parents, but I quickly dismissed that thought. They just blame me. Twisted into another reason why I was irresponsible. No, this was something I had to handle alone. I'd already caused enough trouble. The next day at school was torture. I walked the halls in a daze, avoiding everyone's eyes, certain that somehow everyone knew my embarrassing, terrifying secret. At lunch, my friend Marcus cornered me, concern evident in his eyes. Alex? You okay? Man? You've barely said a word all day, he asked gently, studying my pale face. I hesitated, torn between needing someone to talk to and fear of dragging him into my mess. But the anxiety bottled inside me needed an outlet. Marcus, remember the guy I bought my car from? He texted me last night, threatened me. Marcus. His eyes widened, his voice dropping to a whisper. Wait, threatened you? Like, seriously? Did you tell your parents? I shook my head. They're already mad enough. I don't think they believe me anyway. Marcus frowned deeply, leaning forward. Dude, that's messed up. You gotta tell someone. This sounds serious. The thought twisted my stomach. I knew Marcus was right, but who could I trust now? The police were already involved. But would they even believe me? Would it make things worse? Throughout the day, paranoia gnawed at my nerves, making every shadow seem threatening. When school finally ended, I practically sprinted home, desperate to escape to my room. As soon as I closed my door, another message buzzed on my phone, freezing me in place. Did you think I wouldn't find you? Alex, let's talk face to face. Meet me tonight at Mill Road Park, 10 p.m. alone. The audacity, the calculated threat. It was terrifying. Yeah, part of me burned with anger at the audacity of this man who had flipped my life upside down. I stared at the message, debating my next move. Should I confront him? Could I even handle something like this on my own? Or was that exactly what he wanted? To lure me into a trap? Hours dragged by, and with every passing minute, anxiety tightened its grip on me. I knew I couldn't ignore this forever, but going to meet Frank alone in the dark, it seemed utterly reckless. Still, curiosity and rage warred inside me. I wanted answers. I needed to know why he'd done this. Why he chose me. Why he sold me that stolen car. The clock ticked closer to 10. Finally, I decided to go, but not without a backup plan. Marcus had made it clear he was ready to help, so I sent him a quick text. I'm meeting Frank at Mill Road Park tonight. Stay close, just in case. Don't tell anyone else within seconds, Marcus replied. Got your back, man. I'll be there at 945, heart pounding. I slipped quietly out of the house, walking swiftly toward the park. The night air was cold, heavy with tension. Each step forward felt harder, my legs heavier. I scanned the empty streets constantly, half expecting Frank to appear at any moment. I reached Mill Road Park, dimly lit by flickering street lamps, shadows sprawling across the empty benches and swings. It was eerily quiet, the silence punctuated only by my rapid heartbeat. A part of me screamed to turn back and run, but pride and anger held me in place. Alex, a low, smooth voice called from behind me, making me jump. Spinning around, I saw him, Frank, leaning casually against a rusted swing set, wearing a dark jacket, hands shoved carelessly into his pockets. His eyes glinted in the moonlight cold and calculate. You actually showed? He chuckled softly, stepping forward. Braver than I thought. My voice shook despite my best efforts. What do you want from me, Frank? Why did you sell me a stolen car? Frank tilted his head slightly, lips twisted into a smug smirk. It's nothing personal, Kit. You just happen to be an easy mark. But talking to the police, he shook his head slowly. Now that was dumb. I felt anger rise, overriding my fear momentarily. You ruined my life. They took my car, and now I'm caught in the middle of something huge because of you. Frank's eyes narrowed dangerously, his voice dropping colder. Listen carefully, Alex. You talk again to anyone, and next time it won't just be a little text message. The threat hung heavily between us. I swallowed hard, feeling my courage fade rapidly. Why are you doing this to me? I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted a car. He stepped even closer, voice lowering dangerously. Life isn't fair, kid. Sometimes you just get caught in someone else's mess. But remember, you're not the only one who can suffer. He paused meaningfully, a cruel smile forming. You have a brother, right, Jake? He's a pretty reckless driver. Be a shame if something happened while he was out joyriding again. My heart nearly stopped, cold red washing over me. Leave Jake out of this. Frank laughed softly, enjoying my obvious fear. That's entirely up to you. Keep quiet and maybe Jake stays safe. Your choice. Suddenly, a car door slammed shut in the distance. the sound echoing sharply through the quiet park. Frank jerked around, eyes alert for a split second. He seemed unsure, vulnerable even. Marcus emerged from the shadows, flashlight aimed directly at Frank's face, voice shaking slightly but firm. "Step away from Alex now." Frank glared at me furiously, realizing he'd lost his advantage. His softly voice filled with venom. "You'll regret this, Alex. Both of you." With that, Frank turned sharply, vanishing quickly into the darkness of the park. Marcus hurried over breathless. "Alex? You okay?" I nodded weakly, relief mixing with new fear. "Thanks, Marcus. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." Marcus placed a steady hand on my shoulder, eyes full of concern. "Dude, this is serious. We have to tell your parents now. Frank isn't just some scammer, he's dangerous." I knew Marcus was right, but telling my parents meant admitting everything. The threats, the stolen car, and worst of all, the risk I'd put Jake in. My mind raced with doubt and fear. Could I even trust my family to believe me? To help me through this? Would they blame me all over again? We stood there in the dark, Marcus's steady presence keeping me grounded. Yet the heaviness of Frank's threat lingered, haunting me. Frank had made it clear my silence meant safety, but speaking up could endanger everyone I cared about. I felt trapped, cornered by impossible choices, with danger lurking just out of sight, ready to strike again at any moment. Marcus and I walked silently back home, my mind spinning with anxiety, anger, and determination. As soon as I stepped through the door, my parents stood waiting in the dim living room, faces tense and worried before they could launch into another lecture. I raised my hand sharply, silencing them for once. "Stop! I need you to listen to me." Really listen for the first time, I said firmly, voice unwavering, despite my pounding heart. "This isn't some childish fight over a car. This is real and it's dangerous." My dad opened his mouth to interrupt, but I cut him off immediately. "No, Dad, you don't get to brush this away again. The guy who sold me the car, Frank, he just threatened me. He threatened Jake too. He's dangerous, and he's serious." The color drained from my parents' faces, their anger quickly replaced by confusion and fear. Jake stepped closer, his arrogant swagger long gone, replaced by wide-eyed worry. "Wait me," he threatened me. I nodded solemnly. "Yeah, Jake, he made it clear. Keep quiet or he'll hurt you. Hurt us. Marcus, on two. This isn't some prank or misunderstanding, it's serious." Marcus stepped up beside me, steady and calm. "Alex is telling the truth. I saw Frank myself. We need to get ahead of this before something worse happens." My dad took a shaky breath, visibly rattled. Finally, recognizing the gravity of the situation, "We'll call Officer Bennett immediately." Within minutes, Officer Bennett arrived, notebook in hand, eyes focused intently as I recounted every detail. The texts, the confrontation in the park, Frank's threats. Bennett listened carefully, nodding occasionally as narrowing with determination. "This Frank, he's already wanted in multiple states." Bennett finally said, "Car theft, fraud, assault charges. We've been after him for months." My mother gasped, realization finally hitting her. "And he targeted our son." Bennett nodded gravely. "Seems like Alex was unlucky enough to be an easy mark, but thanks to his quick thinking, we've got a chance to finally nail this guy." Relief washed over me, mixed with a strange pride. Finally, someone saw me, not as a troublemaker or a doormat, but as a person who fought back against something truly wrong. Over the next several days, life shifted dramatically. The police found Frank within a week, tracked down through the information Marcus and I provided. He'd made plenty of mistakes, leaving behind evidence and trails of his scams. The stolen car fiasco became just another charge among many, and when the police finally arrested Frank, Officer Bennett personally called to give me the news, his voice holding genuine respect. "Good work, Alex. You helped to stop someone truly dangerous." The tension at home slowly thawed, replaced with awkward apologies from my parents and Jake. They realized just how badly they'd misjudged me, how deeply unfair they'd been. My father handed me the keys to his car. I serious but softened by regret. "Take this for now, Alex. It's the least we owe you." I took the keys calmly, but looked him directly in the eye. "I appreciate that, Dad, but what I really want isn't the car. It's your respect. It's you trusting me enough to listen next time." He nodded slowly, swallowing his pride. "You have it, Alex. You've more than earned it." Jake stepped forward, quietly, offering me an awkward, sincere apology. The first genuine moment we'd had in years. "Alex, man, I messed up. I was selfish, and I didn't think about you. I'm sorry." I accepted his apology, knowing it wasn't perfect, but appreciating the effort. "Thanks, Jake. Just don't ever let mom and dad use you like that again. Stand up for what's right, not just what's easy." Marcus and I eventually found another used car, this time triple checking its history. I took pride in buying it myself, once again, this time with everyone's support. The ordeal with Frank taught me something important about family and about myself. I wasn't weak, wasn't the pushover I'd always worried I was. When pushed too far, I stood my ground. And now, finally, everyone knew it. As months passed, the story became legendary among friends, whispered with awe and disbelief. But to me, the greatest reward wasn't revenge. It was finally earning genuine respect, self-respect. Most of all, I proved to my family and myself that no matter how much pressure I faced, I wasn't a doormat. I was someone who fought back and won, and that felt better than driving any car ever could. Story 3. Liam is my name. This whole problem began when I was 23 years old, and I am now 28, 5 years. It took me that long to construct anything from the ground up, observe it being torn away, get into the hands of someone who didn't know what to do, and then receive an urgent call pleading with me to repair the catastrophe they caused. She burned it all to the ground in just 10 months, compared to 5 years. It's getting ahead of itself, though. I'll begin from the beginning. My family is what I like to refer to as performative. We appeared to be your normal, middle-class, well-adjusted family in Christmas pictures, complete with matching sweaters for birthday dinner grins. The entire suburbia scene. But it was only a play underneath all of that. What about the starring actress? Emma, my younger sister. There was nothing Emma could do wrong. Never. While texting, she once collided my mom's car with a neighbor's mailbox. Eventually, that became a tale about how I ought to have warned her not to accept it without asking. At the time, I was 16. She was 13. I grew raised in a family like that. She was held in such high regard by my parents, particularly my mother, that oxygen masks would have been necessary to breathe up there. She received everything. An annual new phone, tutors when she wasn't in the mood to study. She took well-earned getaways on vacations with her pals. Despite the fact that during her life, she hardly did anything. I was the one who was in charge. In family terminology, the mature one was the one who was disregarded, unless there was a problem that needed to be fixed. However, I never really voiced any complaints. I guess a part of me thought that I would get recognized if I worked hard enough. I got my turn. I had no intention of outshining Emma. All I wanted to do was construct something myself, something tangible. So I did. I launched a modest digital marketing firm immediately after graduating from college. It was just me at first. I made use of a laptop and a number of branding and SEO library books. I used my bedroom as my workspace. No family support, no money, and no handouts. My friends referred to me as crazy ambitious. To make ends meet, I worked all night, cold called, contacted prospective customers, and took on side freelancing work. My folks didn't understand. How about you find a legitimate job? One evening during dinner, when Emma was carefree and browsing Instagram next to him, my dad made the question. "I'm at work." Simply said, "It's different." As though I were talking gibberish, he shook his head. "Liam, you can't live your life on aspirations." "Yeah, that sounds like something from Pinterest," Emma remarked, looking up. "They don't truly believe in me," I recalled, thinking as I stared at my plate. However, I persisted because I was aware of the potential in what I was doing. And eventually, the data began to support my claims. By the time I was 25, I had 6 staff working for me. We had a simple yet functional workplace space. We essentially got through the epidemic thanks to the 3 significant clients I was able to get. Additionally, I felt as though I was creating a legacy for the first time in my life. In order to concentrate on growth, I even engaged a project manager to handle the day-to-day tasks. Then everything broke down. First, there was a phone call. Mom. She invited me to join her for supper. She replied, "It was just a family matter. There is no pressure. I ought to have known." I arrived wearing pants and a sweatshirt. After a long day of interviews and meetings, I was exhausted to see everyone seated as if it were a formal holiday lunch. Emma, Mom, Dad. I hadn't seen my aunt and uncle in months. I sensed the change in energy as soon as I came in. Everyone seems eager. Overly nice, overly courteous smiles. Mom pointed to the chair next to Emma. "Take a seat, honey." I said, "We wanted to discuss something important with you." "I've been talking to your mother," Dad replied, clearing his throat. "We're really pleased with what you've created." That ought to have been the first warning sign. It was the first time they had uttered such words. "And we believe it's time to move forward and truly make this company a family legacy," he added. I recall blinking. "What are you saying?" Emma grinned as though she had just won something. "We want to bring him on as a co-owner," Mom said. I chuckled. I honestly believed it to be a joke. Emma has no idea what marketing is all about. Mom said quickly that she has excellent intuition and has been enrolled in some online courses. Emma added her voice. "In fact, influencer branding has been on my mind. I have a comprehensive vision for my business." I tried not to panic. This isn't how it operates. This was entirely my own creation. Emma doesn't even participate. However, she might be, Dad said firmly, "and you could use the help." "You work too much, son. Bringing in family could take some pressure off." I looked around the table. Not a single person was on my side. It was like they'd already made the decision. "So you just expect me to hand over half of everything I built?" "Don't be so dramatic," Mom said. "It's not about halves. It's about trust, unity, family." The first stood up. I wasn't shouting, I wasn't crying, but my hands were shaking. "No, absolutely not." Emma rolled her eyes. "Why are you being so selfish? You act like you're the only one with ideas. I've been working for this every day for 5 years." I said slowly. "You weren't there when I couldn't afford groceries. You weren't there when I maxed out my credit card to pay my first hire. You weren't there when I had to sleep in the office because I was pulling 72-hour shifts. You don't get to walk in now and take a piece just because you're family." There was a long silence. Then Mom stood up and looked me in the eye. "If you won't share it with your sister, maybe it's time to rethink whether this business belongs to the family at all." I froze. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dad said, "we've been talking to our lawyer. You filed the business under the family trust umbrella back when you were living with us legally. We may have more say than you think." My stomach dropped. They were right. In my first year, when I couldn't afford legal fees, I'd use the family lawyer to help me register the business. He offered to put it under the family trust for tax reasons. I didn't know better. I was desperate. I was young, and they were about to use that against me. "I suggest," Dad said calmly, "you think about what kind of example you want to set for your sister, for your future kids." I didn't utter another word. I walked out, drove home, and by morning I'd turned in a resignation letter to my own employer. I officially signed over operational power to Emma. They didn't fire me. I walked away. It stung like nothing else. I spent 2 months feeling like a ghost. I was angry, numb, hollow. I didn't even log into social media. I couldn't bear to watch what they were doing to my firm. But after the fog lifted, something changed. I recalled who I was before all this. I remembered the drive, the bustle, the heat. I thus began over. Not for them, not to exact retribution, for me. And I have something new now after 2 years. Larger, more intelligent, thinner. Silently, I created it. No announcements on social media, no posts on LinkedIn, no interviews. Simply put, work. Would you not be aware of it? The company I abandoned. It's disintegrating. Emma is unable to cope. Customers are departing. There is branding everywhere. I've heard that their attempt to establish an influencer campaign flopped badly. They're losing money. I received a call last week. "Mom, Liam, honey, we must speak." I let it to ring. Then Dad sent an SMS. "Emma is struggling right now. Perhaps you might stop over for a brief meeting." I didn't answer. However, it was the section that truly caused me to pause. Emma left a voicemail. "Well, see, I understand. This was always meant to be our thing, but perhaps I was a bit unprepared. Just come assist, please. This is something you can change. I didn't return their call. I didn't send an SMS. Who didn't send the classic? This message, despite my strong temptation. Rather, the first used my expensive new espresso machine to make myself a cup of expensive coffee. I purchased a totally pointless buy just because I could, and take another listen to Emma's voicemail. Not because I was changing my mind, simply because her voice was filled with desperation, which was comforting to the soul. Have you ever eaten popcorn while watching fireworks? While everything they touched burned, I was just feeling the vibes. Let me clarify now. I was not going to become involved. I was fully aware of what would occur. They would give him credit for bringing me back, and I would jump in and make things right. No, I won't repeat that rodeo. I would sooner use a plastic fork to eat raw rice than allow them to draw me into their muck. In addition, I was occupied. My new company was doing really well. I established a consultancy business that specializes in assisting mid-sized businesses with restructuring and rebranding. Behind the scenes, we were the success's ghostwriters, dramatic high retainer. I had a crew that appreciated me and clientele that I genuinely enjoyed. I had a modern office with floor-to-ceiling windows in the heart of the city, and one of those ostentatious snack shops with little cans of sparkling water that make you feel wealthy even though no one consumes them. However, my phone buzzes one day as I'm going over a pitch deck. No call, a message from the intercom system at my apartment building. From the foyer, someone was asking to enter. Perhaps you have had the feeling of having your stomach drop, but you also want to laugh because this is so ridiculous. It has the sense of a comedy. Yes, that. Of course, I didn't buzz her in. I stood there looking at the screen as though I was due money. My phone buzzed once again, not even 10 seconds later. Mom is phoning. I said no. She gave another call, refused, then an SMS message. We're on the lower level. Let us up, please. We must speak. The pronouns, we are plural. Like an elderly man in a bathrobe, I peered through the blinds to see if there were any squirrels. And, yes, they were there. Emma, Mom, and great dad, standing outside the building as if they were filming a family drama's season finale that nobody had requested. That should be sufficient to drive them away, right? However, no. Emma had a strategy. She took out her phone and began using the intercom system to randomly call residents. Over the speaker, I could hear her voice. Hello, I'm visiting my brother here. I guess he moved away. Would you please let me in? I heard the buzz, so I guess some kind old woman named Mildred in Unit 4B believed her when she tried to crowdsource a break-in. The doors then opened. They were inside the structure. My lift takes precisely 47 seconds to arrive on a good day, and I currently reside on the 7th floor. I took the appropriate action, as any respectable, passive-aggressive, petty sibling would. I waited while pouring myself another cup of coffee. A minute or so later, ding! The door was knocked on. I leaned against the frame, opened it halfway, and gave them the warmest, most phony smile I could manage. Whoa! Look who understood the mechanism of doors. Mom launched into a breathy, phony, worried monologue right away. We really didn't want this to happen, Liam, but Emma is going through a really tough moment, so I held up a finger. Give up. You got me. We didn't want it to come to this. Because you did. You absolutely did. You just thought it'd be easier to ambush me than admit you were wrong. Dad attempted to intervene as if he were the cool-headed mediator, son. No one's saying you weren't. Right. But this is bigger than ego. The business is on the verge of collapse. Clients are backing out. The staff is quitting. Your sister is doing her best. She used Comic Sans in a corporate proposal. Dad, I interrupted. Emma sneered. It was a creative option. I gazed at her. You printed the corporate logo in pink glitter. It was a rebrand. You used glue and genuine glitter in 2025. She appeared ready to dispute, but I turned back to my parents. So let me guess. You thought if you showed up here, you might shame me into helping? You figured I'd roll over like I normally do, fix your mistake, and slip softly back into the shadows. Right. They didn't say anything. I let the silence extend for a bit. Then, so they could see what I had now, I moved aside without inviting them inside. My flat sparkled behind me. Hardwood flooring, minimalist furnishings, real art. Not IKEA. Live. Laugh. Enjoy things, true art, the scent of air conditioning and espresso, calm. Doesn't it seem like someone in need of saving? I said quietly. Mom blinked. Just speak to Emma, Liam. Perhaps assist her for a few weeks to help her get back on track. Then, if you'd like, you can leave once again. I cocked my head. Go away once more. When you initially threw me down a cliff, I didn't leave. Instead, you gave Emma the keys to my parachute and instructed her to work it out on her own, that is. I'd be sensible. It would have been reasonable to refrain from taking my business in the first place. Then Emma had her tantrum in typical golden kid way. I'm not sure why you're acting this way. You always give off the impression that you're far superior to everyone. If you weren't so theatrical, perhaps, all of this would not have occurred. The languid blink of a cat poised to knock a glass off the table simply because it's there is what I gave her. You're correct. I am better, I said. Because of this, my business is doing well, while yours is staying relevant by handing away free pens at farmers markets. She let out a gasp. Mom had a terrified expression. Liam, she yelled, you're being unkind. No, I said, taking a step back and softly shutting the door. I'm telling the truth. And I won't apologize for it for the first time in my life. Click. I didn't slam it. I didn't shout. I just closed it and secured it. For a time, they stood outdoors. I heard sounds that were muted. Emma's tirade. Mom is attempting to soothe her, Dad murmuring that he is ungrateful. Finally, footsteps could be heard receding down the corridor. The humorous part, though, they didn't travel all this way for a dramatic encounter in the hallway, so that wasn't the end of it. They had a contingency plan. When I returned home from the gym 2 days later, I saw a plate of cookies waiting for me. No explanation, no remark, only a tidy little plastic-wrapped platter. Like a suburban peace gift, they sat there. Now, this may appear charming, even wonderful, to most people. However, you must comprehend something. There are only 2 circumstances in which my mother bakes cookies: to control someone, to exert more control over someone. The type of mother she was, she cooked passive-aggressive pies. Call it a double chocolate guilt trip. Therefore, I wasn't feeling very happy when I saw the platter of handmade forgiveness. I had the impression that I was being lured into a trap. Glitter Glue Woman is still out there, so I gathered them up with a towel and threw them in the garbage like I was defuzzing a bomb. Then I looked at my phone and saw 3 voicemails, 1 text that made me laugh out loud, and missed calls. Emma. Hello, I spoke with this man who was formerly your assistant. Said to have a fondness for cinnamon chip cookies. I hope you still like them. Let's have a conversation. What a completely insane combination of baked pastries and spying. In less than 48 hours, they've gone from ignoring me to buying me dessert. There must be a record there. I didn't answer that night. I choose to play the piano as a way to relax. I do play the piano. Furthermore, I'm not competent enough to qualify it as a personality attribute. However, 5 minutes or so later, I heard someone knock on my door. Not a courteous one. The knock was the type that says, "We know you're in there, and we're not going anywhere." With a groan, I got to my feet and opened the door. Of course, in part. You know who it is? Emma was standing behind her, wearing sunglasses indoors, and clutching a clipboard as if she were about to inspect me. My mom, dressed in pearls. Pearls? Who goes to a confrontation wearing pearls? Who organizes their deception? Equip them. Mom spoke in a feverish hurry. We just need a few minutes of your time, and I understand that you're unhappy. Please, just listen to us. Emma raised the clipboard as if to call out a magic spell. I brought predictions. All I could do was gaze at her projections. I said it again. Serious as ever, she nodded. Indeed. I have done the maths. The company may bounce back in less than half a year, in the event that we hire you as a temporary consultant. Oh no. Last year, I worked as a consultant. I was too controlling and emotionally unstable. My resurrection service is now a one-man operation. I crossed my arms and slightly widened the door. I said, let me guess, you maintain control. When everything seems to be going well again, you grab the credit and go on another podcast discussing young women entrepreneurs, while I do all the work. Emma blinked. I was invited by that podcast. In addition, I run my own business. I recalled that you once told interns to rearrange the office plants according to how they felt. That's not being a leader. It's a seizure on a Pinterest board. Mom came forward. Her voice abruptly became much more firm. Liam, this has nothing to do with personal animosities. This has to do with family. Emma is having trouble. She needs you. And I believe you require us to, deep within. In fact, I had to suppress my laughter. Without you, I'm doing perfectly. Calmly, I said. My company is doing very well. The drama isn't something I miss. The constant gaslighting or the emotional acrobatics. I don't need anything from you then. Emma appeared on the verge of losing it. Why are you acting this way? Such as petty. Oh, I tilted my head and replied. It isn't petty of me. It became enjoyable when I stopped. I pulled out my phone and accessed my collection of pictures. Something I've been putting off for this very moment. A screen grab. It was a client endorsement from a business they had lost, but now I worked with. The testimonies were read. Emma and I collaborated for 3 months. Poor campaign management, a lack of communication, and branding choices that deliberately harmed our reputation. Since we started working with Liam's team, we've seen a quantifiable return on investment and an 87% increase in engagement in only 6 weeks. I wish he had been our first. Their expressions changed in real time as I swiveled the screen in their direction. Emma appeared to have overindulged. Mom's mouth formed a tight line. Perhaps next time, I said. If you can't even handle a hammer, don't fire the person who constructed your house. Emma lost her temper. Isn't this something you're enjoying? Oh, so much. I'm thinking about printing a spoof version of this testimonial. I then smiled at them. The one you played yourself, you know. Grin. I can only characterize Emma's voice as a hybrid of a curse and a hiss. Without saying it out, she strode down the corridor on high heels, as if the floor had offended her forefathers. Mom lingered for a while. Liam, she muttered, are you destroying bridges? I gave a nod. I did bring marshmallows, though. I then shut the door once more, permanently this time. I meant it, too. There was no slow-motion montage of me crying after they departed, nor was there any dramatic music. I didn't gaze wistfully at a picture of us as children at the beach. No second-guessing or softening occurred. Unlike Emma, I had real clients who depended on me. So I sat down at my desk again, opened my laptop, and went to work. Not only a vision board and Pinterest board stuck to a coffee cup. Days went by, followed by weeks, and my family's quiet was priceless. Like the quiet you get on a Sunday morning when it's pouring outside. The electricity isn't on, and no one is requesting that you fix things. Peace was not broken by you. However, in the world of self-destructive companies, news spreads quickly. In less than a month, I began to hear tidbits from acquaintances who continued to communicate with them. Oh gosh, I never asked for updates. A petty guy who keeps to himself is adored by the cosmos. She compared her journey to a phoenix rising from the ashes of male-dominated mediocrity as part of EMI's branding initiative, which apparently included a social media campaign. Had she not unintentionally tweeted it from the company's official account while a male client was tagged in the same thread, it might have been successful. In less than 5 minutes, they lost that client. Then there was the incident at the workplace. In order to create a more artistic collaborative flow, she had made the decision to redesign the workstation. What that actually meant. She took off every desk and put beanbags in its place. Beanbags for a group of overstimulated creatives who are balancing external monitors, graphics tablets, and computers. After slipping out of a beanbag in front of a client, one guy's back gave out again during a quit Zoom call. It seems that the office manager simply ceased coming up. In the meantime, my mother intensified her traditional strategy of denial. She continued to share motivational sayings on Facebook, such as tough families endure, but tough times never last. One of my old high school pals contacted me, accompanied with stock photographs of eagles soaring through storm clouds. Your mom's Facebook page is becoming a 2003 motivating calendar. Do I need to worry? According to what I understood, Dad had tried to become more involved in the company to assist Emma deal with the commotion, which was family jargon. Many attempted to contact some of my former clients and persuade them to return. Do you know what took place? Hey, just wanted you to know that your dad tried to sell me... On working with me again, one of them said in an email, I informed him that I would like to invest in a banana stand that is manned by raccoons. Raccoons. Yes, it was unraveling because I had framed that email. The Instagram account stopped being active. From a state-of-the-art creative agency, the website turned to 404 not found. Innovation means letting go was the heading of the most recent blog article when I happened to check it out of curiosity one day. An appropriate eulogy, to be honest. Then there was radio silence. No baked goodies, no messages, no calls. At last, they had acknowledged what I had always understood. I would not return. I had no intention of playing fixer-upper with their sandcastle. And I can honestly say that the best present I have ever given myself was to cut them off, because I sought out my business and tripled its sales in a year without the burden of their expectations, judgments, and manipulation. I spoke at conferences and was asked to do podcasts, but I graciously rejected as I don't need to share my grind with strangers while sitting on a white couch sipping green juice. I once taught young entrepreneurs who wanted to learn, who genuinely listened, and who weren't merely given the CEO title because they bought a copy of Atomic Habits and a new blazer. I purchased a lakefront cottage, resumed dating. I even purchased a new vehicle. Nice, but not ostentatious. It's one of the ones with functional Bluetooth and heated seats. I also occasionally feel that old itch. I was wondering if I should follow up to see if the family was doing better or if they had ever recovered. But once I got home and opened the door to my tidy, peaceful flat, I would ask myself, why ruin a perfectly good day? Success, according to some, is the best kind of retaliation. I disagree. The success of the play is ostentatious. When you close a door and believe deep down that no one on the other side has the ability to open it, again, you experience a moment of temporary serenity. And that's how I became the hero in my narrative and the villain in theirs, my buddies.